Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Success Life You Master Series. I am excited to have Brian Wagner, Brian with one eye, joining us today for this. I had such a joy reading his book. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon, identifying your blind spots, overcoming obstacles, and creating a clear vision of your life. One of the things I enjoyed about the book, and you'll learn more about it, is Brian did lose his sight. And so he addresses it both, openly and honestly, but with a sense of humor that makes the book really fun to read. It does not become one of those poor, pitiful me, hear my life tragedy, see what I've accomplished kind of books. It really says, you know what? I've been walking around with blind spots long before I lost my eyesight. And so he takes us through that journey of understanding what it is to have a physical blind spot, but how that physical blind spot started to reveal itself in his life and a more personal growth and business growth mindset. And so, as we talked about this morning on Success Life You, I love when we can look at life and see opportunities for the physical to teach us the lessons we might need to learn mentally or spiritually or personally. And Brian leaned into that lesson hard. And so I've invited him here today to really talk about what is a blind spot, where do we have blind spots, how do we identify our blind spots, and then more important, how do we navigate life with the blind spot? Because you know what? Sometimes blind spots don't go away. We need to learn how to see them and adapt and compensate for them. Just like in our car, we know there are blind spots, and then we know there are certain cautions we need to take when navigating the highway in light of those blind spots. So we got somebody who's going to teach us how to do it in life. And so I am going to jump down to the green room. I'm going to grab my guest. And while I'm down there, I'm going to need you guys to like and share and comment and let everybody know that sometimes it does take a brain surgeon. Hello, my friend.
Hey.
Brian with I am well.
I am Brian with one eye, yes.
So I'm often teased at the person who has no social grace. So let's just go ahead. So you're blind in one eye.
I am.
And the other eye is 2020. Well, obviously not 2020.
2030.
2030. So, and the blindness that's related to the one eye is total blindness, correct?
Actually, I do have an eyeball in there, and it's a real eyeball, and I have an image out of that eye, but I have one image that's here and one image that's here. So if that eye were open, and I try to keep it closed, but if that eye were open, I have two images. So it's rather dizzying and nauseous, to say the least. Strange story, but when I first had brain surgery and needed to have this whole problem fixed, after brain surgery, I came back to home and I knew I wanted to just get back to normal. So I went and saw an ophthalmologist who was going to hopefully correct my vision. And it didn't never work, but I said at one point, 'cause I didn't know what I was thinking, I said, I just feel like if I had more light coming into my eye, I'd be better off. So he said, well, we could put in a frontalis sling. I said, what's a frontalis sling?
That sounds really scary.
Yeah, exactly. He said, well, it's when we put a fishing line into your forehead and it connects your eyebrow to your eyelid. So when you go like this, both your eyes are open. It's great until you go back to the fact that I can't really see well when both my eyes are open. So, I still have the fishing line in there. It's right there. But I don't use it.
How interesting. That's interesting. So I can only wink one eye. I can't wink the other. Like I cannot. And I had an eye injury when I was a kid that blinded me. And it happened to be in the eye that I couldn't wink. So again, it's like the good eye that can't close to use it. So I kind of relate to the idea that it's like the eye that I want closed won't close or won't open. So tell a little bit about the journey towards blindness, if we want to use that as the expression.
Sure. I mean, towards blindness, when I was 43, this is when all this really happened. But prior to that, and that was back in 2011. Prior to that, I'd known that I had some brain problems. I know that I had some, actually, I had hydrocephalus when I was 10 years old. That's hydrocephalus, not syphilis. So when I was 10, that's when everything started to happen. But got through that actually for the next, I don't know, 22 some years. I was pretty fine. But then I did have a couple of issues where, I had numbness on the right side of my body, which I actually still have today. I had some other issues where I had some double vision, wasn't sure what was going on. And then in 92, they diagnosed me with, I had a cavernous malformation, a cav mal, if you will. It's a malformed blood vessel, and they can form anywhere in your body. Mine just happened to have formed in my brainstem. So that's when I started to notice problems. But they said, don't ever do anything with that cavernous malformation because it's in your brainstem. And the brainstem was the worst place for it to be. So I took their direction and I didn't do anything with it. But then that's when it happened in 2011. So.
And in 2011,
what happened?
It happened.
So yeah, I was in Cleveland
one morning, and it was like, "Hey, this isn't me anymore."
Yeah, so I was in Cleveland for an all-day training session. Cleveland's about 2 hours north of where I live, and
just so I was born in Lorain, Ohio.
Oh, really? Huh. Well, that's funny.
You're my neighbor at birth. So you were in Cleveland that morning.
Huh. So I was in Cleveland that morning, and then I had an all-day training session. Towards the end of the day, I started to notice how the slides started to get blurry. I mean, I was having a hard time seeing them, but I just thought it was because I was tired. And got in my car, came home, had to stop several times along the way. That 2-hour car ride ended up taking me about 4 hours because I would stop, call my wife, check in, and see how things are going. I would tell her, I'm not doing very well. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, I just think I'm tired. So I'll try to get home, and I made it home, which is fine. But this is really the part of the story where I need to share with everyone that's the part where I should have noticed the blind spot. The blind spot that I had was sitting in the car seat because I should have just stopped and asked for help, but I couldn't do it. So. I don't know if it was a man in me or what, but I just knew I needed to get home. So made it home, slept on the couch that night, and then at about 3 a.m, I woke up, and that's where I had blindness. So both of my eyes were swollen. My whole face was swollen. Both of my eyelids were shut. Couldn't open them unless I lifted them with a finger. So actually, for the next 6 months, this is how I saw anything. I lifted my one eyelid with a finger. So I needed to make sure my fingernails were cut during those times. And it wasn't me to cut them. I had to have someone else cut them for me. So, yeah, that was part of what I went through. And that was in March 4th of 2011. And I went to the emergency room. They, did a whole bunch of tests. I was there for a long, long time. And finally, the doctor came in and he said, "Mr. Wagner, I'm sorry, but you're going to need to have brain surgery." And I'm like, brain surgery? They told me never to let someone operate on my brainstem. Well, the problems you have are only going to become worse and more frequent. So worse and more frequent are the words that I heard for the next 27 days as I was, blind, wondering if this thing in my forehead was going to, or in my brainstem was going to get worse. And I knew what worse meant. I mean, when you're blind and somebody says it can only get worse, that was not a very good time for me.
I remember when I was going through my blindness and how there was like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." And then all of a sudden people start saying, "Oh, by the way, the meat's at 3 o'clock, your potatoes are at noon." and they start to teach you how to navigate in a blind world.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, one second you're saying everything will be fine, and next second you're preparing me to be fully and completely lifelong blind. Which is it going to be? As you were going through that experience on your own, how did you balance the idea that I could recover sight, some sight, versus this is the next new norm?
Well, it took me a long time to accept the new norm, and it is what it is. And I would say years for that to really happen. You know, I've accepted it now because I've gone through it, but really, you know, the whole piece with being blind was hard. I mean, I remember a friend telling me, you know, because I was saying something about a seeing eye dog, or I was saying something about his dog. And he made a joke of, well, you know, that could be your sight someday. Or that dog may be seeing things for you someday, and that was sobering. You know, a lot of other people, and just subtle comments that should be trivial, you know, just it had a lot more impact. You know, I just didn't ever really think about. So having said that, I mean, yeah, the whole piece with being blind and, you know, wanting to get back it was very, very difficult, but I'm glad to have gone through it because now I have so much more to offer. And I probably had a lot to offer the world before, but I have so much more to offer because people have, you know, they see me differently and I see them differently.
So you went in, got the surgery. The end result basically was that not only did you compromise the vision, but the eyelid's just gone to sleep. So you can't open your eye fully unless you assist it.
Yeah, yeah. So both eyelids were like that. There's a diagnosis for it. I can't think of the name right now, but I mean, yeah, both eyelids were down, and I couldn't, you know, bring them up with my muscles or my nerves. Like I said, unless I lift them with a finger. But yeah, it was not a fun time. I'm still smiling though.
Well, and I love in your book how you talk about the experience where you get dropped off several blocks from the appointment that you have to go to. And so you're doing your one-eyed head wander as you're trying to like take in the whole pictogram, and you're tripping and stumbling, and the lesson that you learned along that. Share that lesson with people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just realizing that, you know, I was blind was the first step in this. But I mean, you know, stepping and stumbling and all that, you know, just realize that everything is different when you have one perspective and you're only looking at life from one perspective. You know, I was in IT sales for 16 years prior to that, and IT information technology, and I knew how important it was for me to, you know, make money. I wanted to, you know, save the world, not really save the world. I wanted to save my world. You know, I wasn't worried about anybody else. But my perspective changed, and like walking down that sidewalk changed when I approached it from the different direction. Those bumps were different kind of bumps. You know, they weren't trip hazards. I was falling down a little bit on those undulations, but you know, that whole thing just really was a great metaphor for what it is that I was going through. Not only spiritually, mentally, professionally, but everything in my life.
So currently you do walk with an assisted cane, correct?
I do not.
You do not. I'm sorry. I thought maybe I'd misimaged that. So now when you're going through, and it's been several years, and you're actually having compromised vision, are you, so again, I would assume that you're navigating the physical world takes extra effort.
Sure. Yeah, it takes extra effort, but I think that effort is one that's allowed me to see things differently. I mean, so it's allowed me to be able to see not just the physical world, not just the trees and the walls and all that, but also the people and the people's motives. It's allowed me to see those things differently as well. So I think I have a keener sense of some of those things that are happening that I would not have had before. I was always very positive. I'm still very positive. And that's kind of the way I was raised. But yeah, all that has allowed me to see the world differently.
So we had Kip Roth, who is as a guest and a friend, and he has a birth abnormality that gave him shorter arms. They basically stop where most of our elbows start. And he said, because of it, I've been able to see the world's kindness differently. Because they see him coming, they recognize that he may need special assistance, or that, it's easier for them to open the door than him to try and figure out how to navigate the coffee cup and the door. Those people around you, have you noticed a shift in the way they respond to you?
Oh, without a question. It's obvious that I don't act the way normal persons act, but I still put on a good front for most people. But when I see, for example, a waiter or a waitress, that I've seen before, when they see me coming into the restaurant or the place of business, they remember me. They remember me not because of anything that I did that day, not because of anything, a tip I gave. They remember me for my face. I mean, my face will show them, or my face will come in before me. It precedes me. So, like I tell everybody has something going on in their world. We don't always know what it is. I just happen to wear mine on my face, so it's out in front of me. And I do other fun things along with that, with Brian with one eye. That's fun. It's a fun thing. But it really is all about helping other people to embrace their own personal blindness. I mean, that's what I do from a uniqueness perspective, kind of a personal branding.
What I do like about the Brian with one eye and the way you reflect things in your book is you go ahead and address the elephant in the room before somebody actually tries to figure out how to address the elephant in the room. Because as you said, if you get within 6 feet, no closer, because we're still under COVID rules, but
Right.
if you're within that 6 feet, 1 inch, it's obvious that your eye is not opening. Like did you get something stuck in your eye? And then after a few minutes, it still doesn't open. And so you address it by, hey, I'm Brian with one eye. And they're like, oh, you do have one eye. Like, I'm so glad you mentioned it because I was curious how to bring it up. By doing that and taking the elephant and putting it front and center of the room, it can get addressed quicker. How do we address the issue of real blind spots in the sense of, by the way, I want to point out this blind spot you have, or this thing that maybe you're not aware of? As leaders, as influencers, as coaches and trainers, how can we move into a space where we're able to say, I want to bring up your blind spot without making you feel like it's the whole thing about you?
For most people, you can't just do that. You can't just come up and say, I want to address some of your blind spots. I want to tell you what you could have done better. If that person doesn't really ask you for that feedback, doesn't ask you for those comments, I mean, they're not going to receive it the way maybe they should, but they're not going to receive it as openly as you would want them to. So anytime you receive feedback that you've asked for, you need to receive it as a gift. And what do you say when you receive a gift? Thank you.
Where's the receipt? No.
Where's the receipt? Where's the gift receipt? No. So, that's important. That's an important part of the blind spots is to understand who your inner circle is. Who is the person or persons that you can go to help you with your blind spots, where you're going to receive their feedback as constructive feedback that's going to help you. It might be a spouse, it might be a close friend, it might not be. I mean, it might be a child. You never know what's going to happen. So having someone that you can turn to you may have to pay someone, to be that blind spot expert, and it may take a while.
But well, I like the fact that you point out that we all have a blind spot. I mean, let's be honest. We all got some blind spots. We may not call them blind spots. They may be biases. They may be belief systems. They may be personal experiences that shade the experiences around us. So we all have them. So how do we begin to take that sort of blind spot inventory in a way that we can use it to benefit and grow? You got handed your inventory, like, okay, you can either do this with a fishing line or you can just let it go. How do we begin to assess what our blind spots might be?
Again, you really have to ask, and you have to ask somebody about what your blind spots are. What am I not seeing here that I should be? So think about anything you're trying to do. Maybe you're looking for a promotion, or you'd like to have a date with that certain special someone. Think about what it is. There's maybe something in your life that's holding you back. That's probably a blind spot, but you don't know what that blind spot is. You can't identify your blind spots on your own, or they wouldn't be considered blind spots. I think that's important for us all to understand, that you can't do that. And then you just start to talk and have conversations with people in order to make sure if you hear 3 times over and over and over that you have this blind spot and you've ignored it, maybe you should stop ignoring it, because it's holding you back from whatever it is you want. I really want to take a vacation to Hawaii. Well, what is it that's holding you back? There's something, because you know what it takes to get you to Hawaii. Well, what is it that's preventing you from doing that? Well, I've got this, and this. But okay, well, we've identified some things here. So I think that's important for us all to understand.
And yes, and I think if we sort of kept the analogy of blind spots in cars together, if you're always getting hit on the right rear bumper, you probably aren't probably not aware of that blind spot that's somewhere between where the rear end and the door panel is to the back seat is obstructing your vision, and that's why you're always getting hit there. If you're always hitting into the same stumbling points or success blocks, why is it that I can get everybody to call me but nobody to buy from me? Why is it that I can always find out the girl's name but never her number? Why is it that I can, work out every day and not lose weight? Why, if you're using that expression like, why is it that I'm always, and then coming up short, the thing in between is probably the blind spot that you're not aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%.
So once we decide that this is our blind spot of the week, the one that we need to start working on, that will allow us to begin to navigate, just like your blind spot necessarily isn't going to go away. You've learned how to navigate within that blind spot, or within the awareness of that blind spot. How do we begin to move forward through our blind spots?
How we begin to move forward through our blind spots is with a lot of other people around us that can, tell us how we're doing, and to understand, what it is that we're doing in the world, and what vibrations we're sending off that are, not being perceived the way you think they are. So, there's many books out there. I read a number of books, which is funny because I didn't used to read before this all happened. But now the books that I see, like Insights by Tasha Eurich, where she talks about not only self-improvement, but also self-awareness. And self-awareness is a big part of this. So moving through your blind spots is important, but it's also having that ability to understand, how the world is perceiving you, not only how you're perceiving yourself, not only how you feel about yourself, but also the world as well. So it's a constant reiteration of all that.
And in your book, you talk about charting your vision, navigating your vision, or your destiny.
Yeah.
And I like that visual, because when you're blind or visually impaired, you spend maybe a little more time charting and calculating the path between here and the kitchen because you got to sort of like double check the physical barriers.
Mm-hmm.
When we're growing and becoming people of awareness, my blind spot is always going to be my weakness. My belief system may always be there, but I can chart my success. I can chart the vision of life I want with that in tune. Talk about charting your vision, charting. And you have an acronym, DREAM. Go ahead and share that one. That's like one of my favorites. You use a lot of those acronyms, by the way, and I love those because simple people like me that have very small brains can remember them well.
So when I talk about having vision, it's important to understand that your vision is really your preferred state, and if you can get to your preferred state. So for me, my vision is to have people embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives. That is my vision.
Okay, I need to slow that down one more time. So your purpose is, help me again with that. My purpose is?
My purpose is to have people embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives.
I like that. To have people embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's it.
That's a good purpose. And then my obvious question always has to be, how?
Right?
You gave me the why we're alive. Now tell me how to make it happen.
Well, it's all about purpose. It starts with purpose anyways. And my purpose, I know what my purpose is, but you need to find out what your purpose is. And once you find your purpose, you need to lock in on it. And if you can lock in on it, and then you can make sure you have that set out in the ocean where that's the for example, if you're farming and you're striking a land, you need to make sure you have that one thing out in the distance that you can focus on. You can just use that as your dead center point. If you can have that and you can not vary from that, you may have to vary from that at times, do a little pivot, but understanding that that's where you're going, that's really where it all starts.
I gotta give a quick applaud because I just taught a class last weekend again. One of my favorite classes to teach, Discover Your Blueprint for Success, and I teach purpose doesn't change. Vision adjusts and adapts based on where you're going, but your purpose, it's pretty lock solid. Now it may change in the feel and the essence and the accent of different words, but it's not going to change based on whether it's a Monday or a Wednesday if you're employed or unemployed. Mm-hmm. So I love the way you described your purpose as that fixed horizon that you're always driving towards.
Yeah. Now you had asked about the acronym DREAM, right? So the D in DREAM stands for deserving, and that deserving can come from many different things. I mean, deserving is what you feel as though you deserve, or it can be making sure that whatever it is you're doing is deserving of your gifts. So, am I using my gifts, my God-given gifts, for the greater good? Am I using them for good and not evil? Am I doing what I'm doing for the right reasons? And obviously, we talked about the reasons. If I continue to go back to that reason, then my D in deserving will be accurate.
And I think that's important because sometimes we invest our time and our talents in the things that aren't quite right. That maybe me being present or me being engaged in this moment is serving me more than the other person, or what I'm seeking from it is serving me more than the other person. And so I got to make sure that when I'm taking my time, talents, and giftedness and I'm planting it in some place, not only are they deserving, and I don't mean that in a qualifying, but sometimes the fruit isn't ripe enough or the student isn't ready enough. But equally so, are you deserving of the opportunity to be that teacher, to be that light, because sometimes we come in with our own motives, and that's not what deserving sounds like.
Right, right. So, I mean, I always tell people that I don't believe I've been given this because I've done something wrong. I feel as though I've been given this to bring God closer to other people, and also to bring me closer to God. You know, I think that's very important to everyone, that they understand. You know, this is what I have, and this is why I have it. This is what you have, Eric, and this is why you have it. This is take another person in the audience. What do they have, and why do they have it? So, uh, getting to your unique gift, that's part of it, but also marrying that up with your purpose is very important.
Yeah, and that's where I'll talk about purpose versus passion. Passion is more that gifted and like, I love this. So, so the R in dream. Did I spell dream right?
Yeah, you're good. There's 2 letters so far. But yes, the R is for reinforcements. And reinforcements, that can come from many different angles. But when I think of reinforcements, I think of what's reinforcing my purpose and my uniqueness. What are the reinforcements that I have for what it is that I'm doing? How do I know that what it is that I'm doing is the right thing? Part of that comes from feedback. Part of that comes from audience members that come up and talk to me after a speech, and they'll say, "I truly believe you've impacted my life." Or sometimes it's people that I don't even ask. You know, they come up and tell me, they may have not heard much of my talk. Maybe they just seen me on on my website, or on a TV program, or whatever it is, and they come up. I mean, knowing that I've had that impact is really my reinforcement.
I like that. Yeah, and for me, there's sort of there's this weird feeling that happens when you step out of the moment and you're like, man, that felt good. And it's almost like you got the gift. Like being there wasn't about the other person, about standing in front of the room and the check that walked with you as you left. But it was like, man, that was cool. Like, I'm so lucky I got to be a part of that versus it was all about me kind of thing.
Yeah, certainly. Making it all about me is pointless. I mean, it's because it's not about me. I need to make sure that, and sometimes I get carried away with this myself, because I get so wrapped up in what it is that I'm doing, and I forget about, okay, so how is this impacting other people? And having that understanding of the reinforcements that I've made, will help me to stay on the path.
I like that.
So
what's the next letter in dream?
The next letter is E. I'll make it easy for you. And the E is for experiences. And experiences come from, believe it or not, it comes from your experience. What do you know, not only that you've experienced in the past, over the last 52 years for me, almost 53, but also what am I experiencing today? What am I experiencing with the vibrations or the waves that are being sent off from individual people, and how do I think I'm being perceived in the world? And is what I'm doing perceived as the way that I think it should be perceived, or I think that it is being perceived? If I can do a better job of listening and a okay job of talking, being a better listener is going to make me a better talker.
I so agree.
Yeah. So that's a big part of the dream aspect of their experiences, but dreams have a lot to do with our preferred state, our preferred future, where we're going, where do we want to go. And as you dream, if you're thinking thoughts all day that are about X, whatever X is, I mean, call it pornography or something, evil, and then you expect to have dreams at night that are all about you know,
Laying on beaches and drinking cocktails and enjoying your family.
right. That's a disconnect. So you need to change your thoughts, obviously, up front. But the way you change your thoughts is by changing, what you're putting into your thoughts. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you talking about? If you're expecting to have different thoughts and still putting in the same crap that you've been putting in before, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. So that's why
we used to say in the IT world, bad data in, bad data out.
Garbage in, garbage out. Right.
And what's funny is, to that example, when I used to do network design and implementation, there's a thing called a subnet in the IP code and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a room full of the experts, like trying to figure out why in this conversation it was China was not talking to Brazil, the network. And I mean, everybody was doing everything they possibly could. And the biggest brains were there, and we finally get it all diagrammed on the board. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't that be 2.5 or 3, not 4? If you know IP codes and subnets, being off by one number is the equivalent of being off by 1,000,000 miles.
Right.
The same thing is true with our dreams. That sometimes just the smallest of adjustments and the way we think, and as A is about action, the actions that we begin to take can bring us back into alignment with communication with our dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. It can. The A is for action. When you say action, that reminds you. The A is for action. And when I think of action, I also think of kinesthetic. It's another way of saying action. Anything that's not sitting still. And that actually K is also part of another acronym, which is WINK. And yes, it's another acronym that I have. The WINK helps people to understand.
The book is full of them, you guys. Like a brain surgeon. You have one for WINK, vision, dream, and this seems like there's another one.
Blind, sight.
Blind. No, yeah. I forget that one.
Right. But yeah, so much requires action, no matter what you do. I mean, and taking action doesn't always have to be perfect. It doesn't always have to be the right action. Action actually helps you to understand, maybe I did this wrong, or maybe that was the wrong action. You don't consider it a failure. Just consider it you not yet. You're not there yet. So it helps you to understand what doesn't work. And if you can continue to understand what doesn't work, finally you're going to get to a point where if you've eliminated all the other stuff, you're going to find what does work. But you got to keep going. You got to keep taking action in order to understand what does work.
I agree. I like that. Action. And so M, we get to M now, right?
The M is for measurement. So having a measurement for those I call them things. Things is not the right thing to say. So when you talk about measurement, you want to understand what is working, what's not working, what could be working better. Talking about actions and how important actions are. Well, if you're not measuring your actions, you're not measuring your results, then how are you ever going to know if they worked? So that's also another aspect of this that is very important to understand, is your measurement of your main goal. So we talked about already where we have a vision, we have our goals, but along the lines, you need to have sustainable and measurable goals along the way. So if you're not meeting those measurable goals, those measurable I'd call them milestones that you have, then you need to change course a little bit in order to get to that vision.
It was interesting. Somebody, Mike said the other day that he's given up goals and he's now working on milestones because he doesn't want to feel like he has to start and stop. That goals typically make us feel that way. Whereas milestones are much more like a runner, that maybe I didn't hit my pacing at the first mile, but I can make it up on the second and third mile, but I still got to run the whole race.
Hmm.
So I like when you said measurements have to be like milestones. So we have deserving, reinforcement, experiences, actions, and measurements for dream.
Yeah, that's it.
So if we were going to slide an S in there, and assuming it's success, so when I ask, what would success look like to you?
Success to me, that's a great question, but success is what I have today. I mean, success is more of what I have today. I have a beautiful wife, three amazing kids that are just phenomenal. I mean, I can't tell you enough about them. I have success, but I mean, the next level of success will be just this to another level. And that doesn't mean I'm going to have another wife and more kids. We've been married 30 years in September. So that's going very well. And I don't plan to change any of that. But it's just going to be the next revolution of this. And, I hope to someday continue to, Yes, because right now we're not doing much of this at all. But the speaking career, if I can continue to grow my speaking career and to engage people from all over the world, that's success to me. And if they can understand how they can embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives, then that will be considered success. Now, having said that, I think that there's many things that we can learn from each other along the way. And I appreciate, being on the call here today with you to help other people, your audience members, to understand what they have. What do they have that makes them unique? I think about uniqueness, and I do these pictures with people either when I'm with them or when we're on a video. But I encourage them to wink with me, which sounds kind of strange.
Remember, I only get one eye.
I know, it's all right. I only have one eye, but yeah, I have a permanent wink. But in this winking, when they do that, they will begin to understand, and I'll make sure that they begin to understand that, the part of me that is unique is not the fact that I only have one eye that's open. What makes me unique and what sets me apart is my positive personality and how I'm able to share my story with other people and to include them in my story to help them to understand what makes them unique. So as they're taking pictures with me, I encourage them to think of, if this guy standing next to me knows what makes him unique, I wonder what makes me unique. And that's really where some light bulbs begin to go off. And so I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures on Facebook and my website with different people that are winking with me. It's called Winking with Wagner. And now with COVID, I now call it Winking Without Wagner. So before we end this call here today, Eric, I want to encourage you to wink with me as well. So what I'll do when it's appropriate, I will encourage you to wink, and I'll hold up a camera to the laptop, and we'll do it that way.
That sounds fun. And I noticed that on your website, and it's kind of funny because everybody tries to wink with the eye that you're winking with, so to speak. And it's, if you didn't know the story behind it, you would think, does he see that they're doing what he's like? It's almost like we're on your blind spot side anyhow. So I love the humor that it is. And it does connect you back to your audience by, like, as you said, my uniqueness is not the fact that I have an eye that doesn't necessarily function the way I want it to function. The uniqueness is that I've embraced that as part of who I am and used it to create my story and my life and my dreams around. And I think you're right. We all have, and I say it over and over again, we all have a story. And when we can connect to that story in a way that we grow through it, then we can help other people grow through it. Mm. And I love the way you did it in your book, because we didn't have to spend too much time in the brain surgery part, which is totally fascinating.
Yeah.
You have to watch the TV show Lenox Hill. They do a lot of brain surgery on
Oh,
it.
really?
Oh my gosh. Like they take out the bone part and they'll set it down on the table next to it. And it's like, oh my God. You know,
Yeah.
totally a gross out moment, but you have to watch it. So
Well, actually, they recorded my brain surgery and they gave me the CD with with my brain surgery on it. I watched it once. That was pretty
were
much
you awake?
yes. Oh no! I was not awake. No, not when they did it. No.
No, when you watched it, I hope you were. um, yeah, I mean, the patients that have to be awake and respond to the questions and like move your arm, like the type of brain surgery. And it's funny because they will post a note outside the surgical unit saying patient awake so that nobody walks in and like slips up and goes, oops. Oh, we can fix that later. As the patient's laying there with their head bolted in,
Yeah.
nowhere to run.
That's great.
So it's a fascinating thing that to think of it that somebody has been inside your brain
Mm-hmm.
and been playing around and then left. And I mean, from an abstract sense, didn't that just amaze? I know you talk about it in the book about how you were amazed about the whole process as a observation medical thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because, there was all this leading up to the brain surgery and everything. And then just like that, it was over. I mean, that same day that I had surgery, I was walking the hall. And the next morning, I was discharged from the hospital. And all they gave me was this bottle of extra tank Tylenol. So, that whole part of brain surgery, and forgive me for rubbing my eye because I can't see anything right now. But that whole part of the brain surgery and the what the doctors said to me before I went in, was absolutely fascinating because they didn't give me much hope, and it was appropriate. We're hoping
Isn't it amazing how quickly the body said, "Okay, we're not done. Get yourself back together. Get yourself up. We got to head out the door. By the way, there's something on your left side. Don't bump into it."
Yeah, I mean, that's it's interesting how the body can adapt to the situation we're in. I mean, and so when I drive, I do drive still, but sometimes my wife will be riding with me, and not very often. She usually drives, but when she is sitting with me, she is the one that sees my blind spots, so she knows what I can't see, and that's just having, and that's more than just me, more than just my body, but it's hers as well. So she knows now what I can't see. So she sees through my blind spots. It's very similar to the blind spots we've been talking about today, where people need to have someone with them that will see through their blind spots. And I think of how critically important that is in daily life. In order for us to be able to go forward, in order for us to be able to be successful in whatever we call success.
I've always had people around me, whether they're friends or teammates or employees or whatever. And I say, look, I'm not always aware of what I say or how I say things. So if I say something inappropriate, check me. If I miss something, check me. Because you're right, we all get sort of driven down the path that we think we should be walking or going, and we don't always see the one thing that's just inches away from nicking off our ear, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That having somebody that you give permission to call it out, knowing they're not calling it out to, judge you, but to simply say, hey, by the way, are you seeing this? Yeah. And I always love when somebody say, hey, I want to point out something you might not be seeing. And if you are seeing, okay, cool, then you're just stupid. But if somebody, I remember in a situation, and when it was all over and done, they said, I thought you knew all that. And I was like, no, if you had only told me early on, I could have avoided like this mile-long chaos. I'm sure it's the same with you. It's like, if you had only mentioned it, we wouldn't have sideswiped the Cadillac sitting next to us.
So you could have avoided it, or I could have missed that Cadillac, but would I have? Would I have taken your advice or your comments or your feedback that I didn't ask for to heart? That's the hard part of being us as humans. We feel as though there are certain people that are entitled to give us feedback, and there are certain people that are not entitled to. And when these people that just come into our life and they offer this feedback and it's not asked for, we we mentally judge that person, for one. I know I do. And we then degrade or minimize what it is that they're saying.
Yeah, my mic is messing up. I think it's important that we give people permission to give us feedback.
Yeah.
So that they know that they don't have to often package it and sugarcoat it and because for me, I get lost in that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no clue what you're trying to tell me. Be straight on. But I also think we have to be aware what the motive for the feedback is. If it's to improve us, to make us better, to communicate our message stronger, in my case, then listen in. If it's just simply to show off what they know that you don't, or to position themselves in front of you instead of beside you, then that's just criticism and judgment. And I have no problem letting that go.
Yeah. But at the same time, we don't want to ever assign motives to other people's actions, because when we start to assign motives to other people's actions, that's a downhill slope. I mean, we don't want to be that person, because then we get in the judgmental part of it. We're judging this person that's judging us. I'm like, where does this go? Where does it stop?
I have to agree. I hadn't thought of it that way. I guess sometimes in my role as somebody that works with writers as a coach, and I spend a lot of the day working with them on their writing, I always have to remind them at the beginning of each session, like, okay, we're in this together because you want somebody to give you feedback. Now I'm giving you feedback and I'm opening us up for dialogue about the feedback. But remember, our ultimate goal is to either write a book or use a book to create a business and a platform, speaking, etc. But I get the same response when I sit down on their dining room table or dinner table at night. I get like, nobody asked you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not getting paid here, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, my opinion of your book, though, I love it. It really was a lot of fun to read.
Well, thank you.
Partly because your humor shows up in it.
Good.
Because you have a lot of good mini lessons that I really enjoyed, like the DREAM acronym or the vision, the blink, and the blind, because it sticks. It's like, oh, I can copy that down. I can live with that. I can learn into that. And it isn't really, I mean, yes, you do tell us about the journey of becoming blind and how that has pursued you, but more so how by being blind, you had to slow down long enough to understand that you were blind long before the brain surgery. Mm-hmm. And so I think the title is perfect. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon to identify your blind spots, overcoming obstacles, and creating a clear vision of your life. And a portion of this, you actually donate back to the is it a Kid Again organization?
Yeah, you can go to akidagain.org. It's a great organization. They help the families, just the entire family of kids with life-threatening illnesses. So they take them to in Ohio here. They have a great relationship with Cedar Point and then Kings Island. So Cedar Point. So they go take them up for a day, and they'll actually have the entire the entire park to themselves. And it's those are some of the things they do. They also do several things across the country now. They have a chapter in Philadelphia. They have a chapter in Illinois and in Indiana. So there's a number of these chapters that are springing up, and it's all about helping the kids. Not so much as it used to be called Adventures for Wish Kids. So it's not about a wish, not about a one-time thing. It's about helping them and their parents and their families to be able to have a much more fulfilling life throughout the course of the year. And in that, having them have a fulfilling life, they also get them out of the hospital at times where they, are taking shots and all this day in and day out. And it helps them to get out of that and get in the new frame of mind and just to be a kid again. So
I think it's a wonderful organization. So it's a great book. It's a great learning lesson, but realize that when you buy the book, you're also helping a kid be a kid again.
Yeah.
And going to Cedar Point, which is my childhood memory, the blue streak.
The blue streak. That's been around forever.
Yeah. Well, look who was talking.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that out loud. You were there after it was old.
I think I remember the ribbon cutting. But I appreciate when somebody takes the opportunity to give back to our kids. And so you guys think about it. It's a great book. You'll learn a lesson or two, and you'll help a kid have a day at Cedar Point this summer. Other things that you're working on, other programs, other things you want people to connect to you about.
Yes. So I have several of the programs. And one of the programs that I have is some workshops that I'm performing with someone else that is really lending itself more to human resources and how, for the first webinar that we did a webinar, it was a workshop, and it was a workshop on leader. It was called onboarding blind spots from afar. So what kind of blind spots do you have when you're onboarding and you're not able to be with the person? Obviously, in the middle of COVID, we're trying to do a lot of that as we're hiring here and there. So
I like that. That is really out of the box thinking, because I forget who's doing it as a commercial where the guy's doing the job interview and he gets the job and he jumps up and he's in his underwear below the waist. And HR directors are struggling, teams are struggling, because you can appear one way on this little camera, and is it who you're really getting? So I like that idea.
Yeah, and then we also have another one coming up here in July 29th at 2:00. And it will be recognition and appreciation, another human resources led event. And that will be human resources and appreciation. Recognition and appreciation from afar, blind spot. So it's all in the same vein. It's all themed the same way. So, on my website, I have the book obviously is for sale. There are different ways that you can, join me, like, for example, in my membership site, which is also branded the Vision VIP members. So that again is well, it's not again, but I mean it is a 52-week program where we have weekly videos that we deliver for you for a cost for annual subscription. And then outside of that, we also have speeches that are coming up, and we have a couple of speeches here in September and October where I'll be talking with groups that are they support the intellectually and developmentally disabled. So I'm speaking rather fast. Sorry. The intellectually and developmentally disabled, and the communities that support them are very vast. So, I mean, one of the organizations is in Oregon, so I'll be speaking for them in October, and then the other one in September will be with a group in Kansas. And again, it's a group that they support the community that supports the intellectually and developmentally disabled. So a great group of people that I've had a chance to spend a lot of time with. So the direct support providers that are a part of it are phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm experiencing them daily for my daughter. Website again. I thought I had it up, but I must have misplaced it on my feed.
That's all right. My website is aradicalvision.com. It's ARADICIL vision.com. However, you can also get to me from brianwith1eye.com. And see, you laughed. So if you go to brianwith1eye.com, there's a free downloadable sheet that helps people to understand how they can make the better experience with their conferences. And that also is important to note, because in that document, we take people from a point of blindness to sight to vision. And that's the process, that's the methodology, the framework for everything we do. It's taking people from a point of blindness to sight to vision.
And I think as I was reading through your stuff and doing my social cyber stalking, it was like, it's the difference between hearing and listening, seeing and vision, blindness and vision. We can be blind and still have vision, or we can be sighted and lack vision.
Yeah.
And so I like how you continually remind us that vision requires intentionality. Vision requires that we make a choice from the position we're at, sighted or unsighted.
Yeah, and everything I do is under a radical vision. So, it's not only what I have, it's what I offer to people. So, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, you can go to aradicalvision.com or aradicalvision and see any of my information there and follow me.
Well, it's clear you have a radical vision and a sense of humor.
Perfect. That's good.
Two things necessary in somebody going through life bumping into walls or coming home with wet paint on their shoulder where they didn't see the sign, so to speak.
That's happened.
I lived your world. I'm trying to remember. It's funny, I can't remember which eye it was that was gone for so long. It was when I was a kid. That was like 10 through 15. I appreciate you being here with us today. Everybody, take a moment and do check out aradicalvision.com or find Brian with one eye and head over and pick up the book. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon. You'll gain a lot of insight and a lot of fun from it as well. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Before we go,
we got to do the wink thing.
Can we wink?
I don't know. I'll try. That looks really creepy.
You gotta lean into it. Are you winking?
I guess. Am I winking or not winking, people? See, I'm a really bad winker because of my injury.
All right, we're gonna try it.
Wait, we'll just do it this way.
Whatever works. All right, one more. One more.
I can't wink. Do you know you can't wink and laugh simultaneously?
All right, I'm gonna lean in more. Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny when you go to the eye doctor and he's like, I suppose you go through the same thing. It's like, wink the other eye. I'm like, I really can't. He's like, everybody can wink two eyes. I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, it was great fun. Everybody, I will see you on the next Success Life Live. Till then, be well, my friends, be well. And remember, you are worthy of your success. Go out and claim it today. Go out and claim it. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.